Hey, Doodles AI is a recent AI imaging tool that came out recently. It's trained on one person, the founder's art style. I think it's interesting for two reasons. One, the style doesn't immediately transfer over to different AI imaging tools like Nano Banana or ChatGPT. So you can see on the screen here, I did a simple one prompt, um, and it didn't work, right? If it doesn't work in one prompt, it doesn't work for most people. But the second interesting thing I think is that uh, this could be a potential business model for small art studios or individual artists themselves. I know big art studios are doing something similar, so you can imagine Disney and OpenAI, but like for small art studios, to go about the whole ethical concerns of training on other people's data and stealing it, you could do your own art style, and that could be a new stream of revenue. So you can imagine you had your traditional way of like, oh, I'm an animation studio and I sell this show to some distributor, or maybe there's a merchandise. I can't speak. There's some merchandise deal that you have, but now it could also be a situation where you also allow your fans to participate for some fee in this art style, so they could create an image, they could create a show, or they could create a game, which would be really cool to see. But there's also ethical concerns that you can also imagine with something like that. What I do think is also interesting though is I was looking into it for this video, and there's a similar startup called Tesla Design. Similar thing. What they did is that they said, "Hey, we know there's ethical concerns. So what we're going to do, we're going to take Dali and fine tune on your art style, your portfolio, and now you can go license this out. So if someone wants to use that art style, you will get some royalties, right? So it's a really nice deal for I think it was a really nice deal for a lot of artists, but then it shut down recently because they were facing a lot of challenges. One of which was a lot of artists weren't opting in for obvious reasons. Like in the art community, it's a very prominent belief of generative AI is just not good and ethical. So a lot of artists weren't opting in for that reason. But there's also other logical stuff I hadn't considered before. Like one, if I was an artist with a art style I really valued, and someone wants to go to use that to support brands or ideas I don't support, that could affect my art style. So maybe people say, oh, that art style is used for X, Y, Z, and I don't like X, Y, Z. And I'm going to like deter, I'm not going to participate in that art style. So that could be a negative impact. Overall, though, I do think those same reasons still exist, right? It's not like they disappear. Like maybe with AI sentiment, it's decreasing from what I'm seeing. Um, but they still exist. So I wonder how Doodles AI is going to maneuver that. I think like with some stuff like the whole brand association thing, if it's big enough, you don't really face that consequence. Like um, if I was to see like the SpongeBob SquarePants art style used for some negative thing or some defamatory or racist thing, I wouldn't really associate it with SpongeBob because I know that that's not the image of the character. It has such a strong brand that it can't be tied to like a single person. So maybe the answer is scale. I also think it's interesting because I really don't know. I really don't know how the future is going to be. I really do hope that somehow, some way, the business model around art really changes because I do think currently the current business models don't serve the majority of artists. So not to say that this will be the solution, but this may be something that could be interesting. I also think it's interesting as it could be like that. I at the beginning I drew the parallel between like merchandise deals and this as a stream of income. But even with merchandise deals, artists don't really get that much money out of it from what I understand. So it's like, how would this really work? Because you can imagine like an artist isn't going to go train their own model from scratch, right? There's going to be a company that does this. Like how much, what's the cut there? Um, but I don't know. I think it's an interesting tool. I think something that's also interesting to me is the limitation or the way it's currently set up. From my testing and my friend's testing, it seems to be an image to text to image where it's not necessarily transferring the art style to the image itself. Like in one fell swoop, it's more so taking process. It's more so taking a description of this image, right, wherever it's seen, and then providing that to the new AI image gen tool to creating the art style, which I think is a bit of a shame because not everything gets transferred over. So it's like I don't get the full layout of my image in that art style. But I do think this goes off. I do think it's a worthwhile thing to look into, even as an art studio, just if it's like experimental, because it was like I don't want to say it's magical, but it was so much fun to see that thing that art style that didn't look AI slop, right? It didn't look like AI slop. It didn't look like something that was low quality. And even with like someone like myself, who like sometimes I want to try and experiment and get something good out of an AI emission tool, which actually takes a lot of effort. Um, I didn't have to do that. Right, like I was guaranteed some level of quality just by virtue of it being trained on a specific art style. I think that could be something that's worthwhile. I don't think it's going to be something where the other frontier labs like DeepMind, OpenAI, or some Runaway, I don't think it's going to be something where they look into and say, hey, how do we replicate that specific business? Because it's not something worthwhile for them. Because if it's like a small stream of revenue compared to how much money they're making from a lot of passive people, and it's like, why go bother to go fine tune on this specific thing or this specific thing? And it just doesn't make sense as like it scales, because like the more and more people are doing the same thing, then the only thing that these big companies will get is a worse version of that art style. Even though to say that if I'll subscribe to like ChatGPT for $20 a month and it was a slightly worse version than a new subscription for $5 a month, I'm still going to use ChatGPT, right? So I really don't know. It could go either way. Um, but I would really love to see more exploration in the space. I think it's worthwhile looking into. I do think this may be the future of engagement, a new form of engagement. Not me to say the future, but a new form of engagement for fan bases and just people alike. Besides that, though, I have nothing else to say. So have a great day.